Hi, and welcome to the Heroes, Villains, and Sidekicks show. We'll be having some fun this week learning about a villain that's actually had a lot of airtime in the past few months on that awesome CW show, The Flash. Today we'll be learning about Flash's latest baddie on the show, Dr. Alchemy. And that's what we're going to be doing each week on the Heroes, Villains, and Sidekicks show. We'll be learning and talking about the origins and backstories of heroes, villains, and sidekicks throughout the comic book universe and pop culture. Now we're going to look at the popular characters and the obscure characters, maybe some you've never even heard of, but I think you'll really dig. Before we start the show, I'd like to welcome and thank everyone from the iHeartRadio network. Our show was just accepted to their community just a few days ago, maybe 3 or 4 days ago, and I was pretty excited when I got the email. So I want to thank you all for listening. And I want to ask everybody out there who's listening, if you have a second, head over to iTunes and leave us a review. So actually head over there right now. Stop doing your laundry or the dishes or tidying up the house. You can see where I listen to my podcast, but head over to iTunes right now while you're listening and leave a review. Now, of course, we will be talking about the backstory and origin of a character, Dr. Alchemy, in comic books, and we'll also be touching a little bit on the CW show, so there will be spoilers throughout this podcast. So let's get into it. Let's learn about Dr. Alchemy. Now, there's been several different men who've picked up the mantle of Dr. Alchemy, and we'll look at all of them, and we'll also take a look at the version of Dr. Alchemy that is on the CW show, The Flash, because he seems to be a blend of a couple of the Dr. Alchemies. Now, the first Dr. Alchemy, his name was Albert Desmond, and he was created by John Broome and drawn by the amazing, I always say the amazing because he was, Carmine Infantino. And he first appeared in Showcase number 13, but was known as Mr. Element, and this was way back in 1958. Now, he does get captured pretty quickly, and he does a rather quick name change, and he comes back in Showcase 14 as Dr. Alchemy, the name that he's more commonly known by. But of other people who pick up the mantle, sort of take a little bit of a twist on that. Every once in a while, it's Mr. Element, Dr. Alchemy, or just Alchemy. Now, the mantle is also taken up by Dr. Curtis Angstrom and then Alex Petrov. And the most latest iteration of the character is that of Julian Albert, and he's on the Flash TV program. So let's take a look at the first Dr. Alchemy. Albert Desmond was a chemist who suffered from dissociative identity disorder, which means he has two distinct personalities. Now, one of Desmond's personalities is that of a law-abiding citizen, and the other personality, well, isn't. The evil side of Desmond's personality used his knowledge of chemistry to create elemental weapons to commit his crimes, and he names himself Mr. Element. He commits crimes using an elemental gun and other weapons he makes, such as bulletproof silicone shields and other elemental weapons. But these are just weapons that Desmond has created with his knowledge of chemistry. Now, it isn't until Desmond is captured by the police for his crimes and is sent to prison that he learns of the Philosopher's Stone. This will be the weapon that Dr. Alchemy will be known for, and the tool or weapon that he uses for most of his career in comics and on the Flash TV show. Like I've said on other shows, I've loved The Flash for some time and have been collecting the comic for really as long as I can remember. There have, of course, been hundreds of bad guys in Flash comics, and he is one of the coolest rogues galleries out there, but I've always really just dug Dr. Alchemy. I loved his suit, his weapons, how he could transmute things. I put a lot of pictures up on the post this week if you head over to the site. And of course, the one thing that I was always drawn to was this Philosopher's Stone. So the Philosopher's Stone, his weapon, has the ability to change or alter the chemical nature of a substance by rearranging its atomic structure, kind of like what Firestorm can do. Now, with the stone, Desmond can do a number of things that include the ability to turn himself or others into a solid, liquid, or gaseous form, cause objects to disintegrate. He can speed up chemical reactions, cause explosions, turn the air outside into a poisonous gas. Of course, he can turn metal into gold. He can turn minerals into metal. He can crystallize objects. He can heat up an object. He can cool down an object. He can generate lightning. And he can kill a human by poisoning the human's body, sort of just like introduce a poison into his body. He has limited regeneration, and really sort of technically he could use it, I've been reading in some places, and if you read about the actual Philosopher's Stone, he could use it to extend his life and become almost immortal. This is a pretty powerful weapon. And I like that the Philosopher's Stone is actually something that has been talked about in literature as far back as 300 AD. It's not just sort of this, the ultimate nullifier thing. It's something that was out there, and it's been mentioned, like I said, in literature, and it's a magical object that's been sought out by magicians and scientists alike. So according to legend, the Philosopher's Stone was made of a substance that can turn base metals such as iron, tin, lead, zinc, nickel, or copper into precious metals like gold and silver. It was also an elixir of life with the power to cure illnesses, renew the youth properties of someone, and even grant immortality to those who possessed it. And it's funny because whenever I read about what a particular character can do, his powers are, or what sort of a weapon or thing that this person has, whether it's a bad guy or a good guy, usually when it's a bad guy, I think, can you imagine what you could do with this? I mean, and the funny thing is, what do we always see in comics? This guy has something that can do really anything, and he uses it to rob banks and stuff. It's I don't know if it's of a lack of imagination on the writer's part, or it's just what we need to do to bad guys. Like, they have to rob banks. I mean, yes, you're talking about a DC comic back in the early Bronze Age where this is what happened. Nowadays, of course, there are much more complex stories happening. I'd like to see what they might do with a Dr. Alchemy nowadays in the comics. But it's always funny. You've got that much power and you're going to rob a bank. It's a little ridiculous. I mean, if this thing is that powerful, which it is, I mean, imagine this. You could go to areas of the world where the soil is just barren and dead, and you could just sort of wave this rock around or just think what you need to think, and you could renew all that land so it is completely fertile, therefore allowing, how much food to be planted on that land. It would be, you could do anything. You could do anything, and you could do amazing good. But there have, of course, been comics where this has been tried. There was a great Superman where Luthor tried to do that, show that he was more powerful, more quote-unquote super. And he tried to do some things with science to make people's lives better, and it ended up just making them worse. I cannot remember what issue that was, but if you remember, go ahead and leave it in the comments. Okay, so now let's look back at Desmond, where we were here. Now, he has the Philosopher's Stone. Now, he's not just using the gun that he created, and he restarts his criminal career as Dr. Alchemy this time. And, of course, one of his main villains is the Flash. Winning some, but mostly losing. He eventually, though, the good part of Desmond's personality wins out. And he realizes this other part of him is happening, and he quits his life of crime. He hides the Philosopher's Stone, and he goes the straight and narrow and finds a woman, and they live in suburbia, and they live happily ever after. Okay, I was kidding about that happily ever after. And that's when the story of this character takes a real soap opera turn. Now, a new Dr. Alchemy appears and begins committing crimes using the Philosopher's Stone. Of course, the Flash and police believe this is Albert up to his old tricks. The Flash goes to Albert's house and asks his wife, has Albert been acting strange? And he tells her, of course, that Dr. Alchemy is back committing crimes. Now, she's quite disturbed, and when Albert comes home from work, she and Barry confront him. Now, Albert vehemently denies he's committing crimes again, but no one believes him. And the police come to the house and take him away to prison, or take him away for booking. Of course, in comics, they just go straight to prison. But before he is in prison that long, this new Dr. Alchemy breaks him out so he can pretty much continue his life as crime. You can't be trying to frame someone and that person be in jail. So they assume that Albert had some kind of gimmick stash, the weapon stash, and was able to get out of prison, but it was actually this new Dr. Alchemy. So the new Alchemy has Albert all tied up, and he explains, this new Dr. Alchemy, that he is actually Elvin Desmond. And get ready for this, again, only in sort of early Bronze Age stuff, he is an astral projection of Albert Desmond. He goes on to explain that they were born at the same day, the same time. They loved the same things, chemistry, alchemy, and both of them sort of had this draw to the dark side. And Alvin explains that while Albert was being a criminal, he seemed to be okay. He could sort of keep those criminal thoughts at bay. But once Albert went the straight and narrow, Alvin's urges to commit crimes kicked into high gear, and he needed to act. And using that sort of astral connection that they had, was able to glean where Albert hid the Philosopher's Stone, and he went and dug it up and stole it. Now, before Alvin can actually kill Albert, the Flash intervenes, and the latest Dr. Alchemy uses the stone to turn Flash into vapor, into sort of like a cloud. And I have to say, this is a really fun page in the comic, because the Flash actually reconstitutes himself by exciting his molecules using high and low pressure air, and he pretty much rains himself out of a cloud. Now, I know what you're saying, that didn't happen. Well, it did. And if you head over to the site on the post for this podcast, I have the page. Now, I actually have a lot of images posted from that 3-issue arc with Dr. Alchemy, because they are some really fun pages. In the end, Flash defeats Alvin, and Albert goes back on the straight and narrow for a while. But here's something else. Now, to make matters even weirder, later on, it is revealed that Alvin isn't actually a astral projection. He actually was created by Albert when he was being evil with the Philosopher's Stone, so he could always carry on his mission if he ever decided not to be evil anymore. I mean, the real soap opera stuff. But we don't just have an evil twin here. We have an evil twin that was created by an evil twin with a magical science rock. And now let's take a quick break from our sponsor, Discount Comic Book Service. That's right, dcbservice.com. Head over to their website. You can order right from the site. You can download an Excel sheet, then upload it and pay via PayPal or credit card or whatever. Now, what is it? It is a company. It's a site that you order your books from. They are, here's the kicker, 40 to 50% off, sometimes 75% off. You order them, they mail them to you. You can get them every 2 weeks. You can get them once a month. You can get them weekly. It's up to you. Of course, you pay a little bit more for shipping when you want it weekly. I get mine monthly. It seems to do the trick. I get a big stack of books at the end of the month, and I get to read through them. They always come packed just amazingly well. I've been using these guys since 2004, maybe 2005. I need to look that up, but I've been using them for a long time. Never had a book missing, damaged, nothing. Perfect service every time. If we look over at their website right now at dcbservice.com, I like to do this and see what the new sales are for this month. Here's one, Justice League of America, the new Justice League #1 coming out, 50% off, $1.49. That's great. New Marvel titles, 50% off, Kingpin #1, Elektra #1, and Bullseye #1. So all those titles, 50% off. The Old Guard, $1.99. Planet of the Apes / Green Lantern. That's interesting. 50% off, only $1.99. This one looks really good. This is a new one from Mike Mignola. How and Why He Saved the Visitor, #1, 50% off. So these are all these books, 50% off. Just an amazing bunch of books. You can get DC Marvel hardcovers and trade paperbacks, all of them on the site, 50% off. So it's pretty wild. So head over there, check it out, dcbservice.com. Okay, now let's get into some of the other people that took up the mantle of Dr. Alchemy. Now, the next person to try out the hood and pick up the stone was Dr. Curtis Engstrom. So Star Labs acquired the Philosopher's Stone in hopes of using it for good, only to have it stolen by someone working for them. And this was this man, Curtis Engstrom, Dr. Curtis Engstrom, who decided to become a criminal and cause problems for the Flash and all of Keystone City. He did change things up a bit, and he called himself Alchemist, which I don't quite like as much as Dr. Alchemy. I guess I just dig the alchemy part, or the doctor part. Now, Engstrom is defeated quite handily, and the Philosopher's Stone is now up for grabs again. And you guessed it, it was stolen by another guy. Now, I mean, this stone can pretty much make any person who has it a god, and they do not keep it very secure. That is just crazy. So the next person to take up the mantle of Dr. Alchemy, or whatever he's going to call himself, I'll tell you in a second, is Alex Petrov. Now, he works as a lowly lab assistant in the Keystone City Police Crime Lab, and he decides he wants and deserves a promotion. Now, instead of applying himself, he steals the stone and starts picking off cops, killing cops, so he can solve the crimes. And he's tricky. You know, he knows a little CSI stuff, obviously. He works in the crime lab. And since the stone can do just about anything, he freezes his victims and makes it look like Captain Cold did it. Solving all these crimes gets Petrov promoted, and he becomes the head of the crime lab. Now, unfortunately, he didn't think it through all the way. See, when you set up your murders to make it look like another guy did it, you should really make sure that the other guy isn't a homicidal maniac with a cold gun. That's right, Captain Cold catches up with Mr. Petrov, who's been calling himself Mr. Element. See this? I told you I'd tell you who he was. Mr. Element. They always got to switch it up a little bit. And of course, Captain Cold, what does he do? He kills him. And you guessed it, by freezing him. And that brings us to the latest Dr. Alchemy, Julian Albert, who's played by Tom Felton on the awesome CW show The Flash. Of course, Felton is perfect for the role, I think. They do such a good job with casting on The Flash. And it's, of course, nice to see him on something other than Harry Potter, where he played Malfoy. So this new Dr. Alchemy shares some of the similarities from the comic. He is a CSI, a meta-CSI, sort of like Petrov. And we actually learn Felton is Dr. Alchemy when he hears voices telling him to pick up the mantle of Dr. Alchemy once more. And by the shock and fear on his face, he seems pretty surprised. So maybe, yes, he's being talked to by this other person that we'll get into on a different podcast. Well, and maybe he does have some type of, split personality or some type of dissociative or disorder that the first Dr. Alchemy had, Albert Desmond. Because I get from, the character Julian during the show when he's sort of reading Flash the Riot Act about metas that he doesn't know what he is. And I think there's these two separate personalities. So, you get a little bit of all these different Dr. Alchemy characters into this one guy. Now, the one cool thing is he does have the Philosopher's Stone. It's not a gun that he created, but it's the stone itself. And I thought that was pretty cool to actually see the stone and not go with a gun. Of course, the costume is very different from pretty much all the Flashes. I kind of dig it. It has that old plague, plague man, the guy who would go around and check the dead for plagues kind of look. He's got the robes and really cool voice. So here's the thing. I do not know how the Flash season ended. Why? This is a show we watch as a family. We really dig it. My son, my wife, we sit down, make some popcorn, and we watch The Flash. And we have not had a chance to finish this season, so I don't know what happens. The last thing I saw was that, of course, we just learned that Julian was Dr. Alchemy, and that's where I stopped. So I've got a few more to watch, I think, to find out how everything ends, which I'm totally psyched to do, because, again, I love the Flash show, and I love Dr. Alchemy on it. I hope, although you probably won't, I hope Felton stays, because, I've really, really enjoyed seeing him on the show. But it is not like, as we have heard, the Dr. Alchemies in the past have ended up in a very good place. So I can't imagine that the Flash TV show version is going to end up in a better place. But hopefully maybe he gets rid of that side of his personality and he becomes just a regular guy, maybe likes the Flash, maybe likes Barry a little bit more, and they can become a little bit more friendly, because they do not like each other on the show. I'm also curious to see whether or not this version of Dr. Alchemy might make an appearance in the Flash comic book. But hopefully, if he is in the Flash comic book, he'll still have that cool hood and the Philosopher's Stone. And I want to let everybody know that I'm still working on the videos of how I put the show together. And I'm talking about how I research the characters, and I go through the whole process to putting it on iTunes, uploading it to Lipson, who hosts the show, and how I create a post on the website. So the next version should be up in a week, but if you want to know when it's up for sure, if you head over to the site, you can fill out one of the forms on that on the page, and then you'll get an email when the new video is up. So you can just head over and do that whenever you want. Well, I want to thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Heroes, Villains, and Sidekicks show. Our theme music is by Broke for Free, and you can find links to other music on the show on our website, heroesvillainsandsidekicks.com. And there you can listen to the show, but better yet, head over to iTunes and subscribe and leave a review. Now, I know people are listening out there, and I'd love to see some reviews. We have one, and it's not a good one, and it has to do when I had the name of the show the same as somebody else's show because I did not do my research. It's quite funny, that one review, but I want to see some good reviews if you like the show. So if you could, head over there and leave a review, and of course, read this other review because it's pretty funny. Quick story. I was so excited to get the show going and build the site. If you hadn't heard this story yet, I think I mentioned it on one of the other casts. I named it the same name as a site or as a show that had been going for like 187 episodes. A good show. But so this guy took me to task in this review. So if you want to maybe add some good reviews to that, because I think it's, it has to do with the name, not the show, I would really appreciate it. So go over there and do that if you get a chance. Leave a review. Now, if you want to hear about a character, if you want to hear a character's review, again, whether it's a hero, a villain, a sidekick, whether it's in comics, movies, TV, head over to the homepage of the site. And towards the bottom, there's a little comment section, and you can send me an email on who you'd like to know about and maybe why. I got a little area there where you can add a little summary, a little comment. And if you want, you can leave your name. You don't have to in the form, but if you leave your name, when we do the show, I'll make sure to mention it that it was your suggestion. So again, thank you for listening. We'll be back next Friday with more. Take care.